I hope so. Hi, everyone. This is Paul. I'm Paul Marienthal. I'm the director of the TLS program. For those of you who don't know what the TLS program is, this is the program at the college for students who design and run civic engagement projects. I'm sure you know some students who are in the TLS program, even if you are not. The first thing I'd like to say is thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time and the effort to tutor the young people in our community. It really makes a difference. We're going to do this. We're going to move along and do this quickly. There's a very clear mission about what we need to do here. You are all adults by law. You're all over 18 years old, which means you are full-fledged adults. You will be working with minors. That means people in this country below 18 years old, which means there are very special legal and ethical issues that deal with minors. So we need to make sure that we are on the same page, that we are in agreement about how we are going to discuss and talk about and be with minors, whether it's in person or online. I do obviously most of this work in person. TLS students and BARD students go out into the community regularly to tutor and mentor young people in the area, and that has its own special characteristics. We're in a very special time for all of us, really. We know that. We're going to be doing tutoring and connecting with people through the internet. It has its own special problems and issues, and we need to be in agreement about what we can say and what we can't say. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. So one of the ways that we can frame this is do's and don'ts. What can you do? What can't you do? What can you say? What can't you say? So here's what I'd like to do. We all have a chat function on the Zoom. I assume you all know what that is. You can all find it. I'm sure you're better at this than I am. So if you are comfortable, I would like you to take a few minutes and write in the chat box what you think is one do for tutoring online and one thing you shouldn't do, one don't you shouldn't do online. I want to say this very clearly. If you're not comfortable doing this so that everybody sees it, don't do this. I'm not trying to pry into everybody's inner world, but it's important for us to see how we think about this collectively, and we're making collective agreements about how we are going to conduct ourselves. So I'm going to ask you right now to go to the chat box and write one do and one don't about tutoring online as you think about this. Good? Go ahead and do this now. Do ask questions to make sure they are engaged. Go slowly. Be friendly and kind. Don't be overly demanding. From Charlotte, be professional. Do not take or post photos of a minor on social media. From Rose, do active listening. We'll talk about active listening a little more in a second. Don't friend a child on social media. You're not there to make friends, says Japheth. That's crucial. Do have a copy of the materials the student wants to work on before the class begins. Yes, we'll talk about that as well. Communicate clearly. Do not try to make substitutions for their relationship, says Rose. Yes, you're not there to make a relationship, you're there to tutor. Don't take pictures of children and post them on the course. Melanie says, do have patience. Many people are finding it hard to focus. Don't take it less seriously because it is not in person, of course. This is crucial to the students. Don't ask about their personal lives that you might see in the background of their video screen. This is an incredible thing. We get a view behind people. Of course, don't do that. Don't discuss your own personal life or ask about theirs. Right, we're not there to discuss their personal lives. Ask them personal questions not related to the academics or the music. Please don't give students a tour of your house or your room, even if they are curious. This is Felicia. Hi, Felicia. Do start every session by asking what they want to work on. Give constructive feedback. This is a critical issue. How do you give feedback that keeps people interested? We'll talk about that some more. Be an engaged listener, of course. And we'll talk about sexual, violent, drug conversations and what it means to produce a personal working environment. You are all quite brilliant. I think you really understand the basics of this. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about a few of these because it's essential that we as a college have stated clearly what our roles are going to be when we go out to tutor. We are there for a very clear purpose. Our mission in the world is to help the local students do better in their academic lives. Of course, you know that being a real human being is going to make it more possible to do this work well. And so that's tricky because you don't want to be a computer, you're a human being. You want to go there as a human being and you want to encourage people as a human being. That said, there are very clear limits about what you should and shouldn't say in a conversation with a minor. Be careful about conversations about drugs or sex or your personal relationships. These are not appropriate for this conversation, for these sessions. Keep those to yourself. And here's a really important thing. High school students, especially the juniors and seniors, they may ask you about your life. Here's a really important skill which you can learn. It's a skill that will serve you well, especially if you're going to go into the helping professions, if you're going to be a counselor or a teacher, anytime you're going to be working with other people, you need to learn how to reframe the conversation and bring it back to the person. So if somebody says, what are your relationships you are like? You can say, tell me why you asked that question. This is a little bit of an art form. How you redirect a question and bring it back without going into your own life. Be clear that there are some boundaries. The boundaries are your personal lives you should keep to yourself at this point. It's not appropriate to share those with high school students in Red Hook. So if somebody asks you, what about your girlfriend or your boyfriend? You can turn that back and say, why are you asking this question? What's important to you about relationships? What is it? See if you can turn the conversation into some other kind of conversation. You don't want to go towards your own relationships. This is a boundary you should keep very, very clearly. You're there to do a very particular task, which is to help them academically. It may well be, and I hope that parents will be involved in this process. They may well be watching or be nearby in these sessions. We have asked them to monitor these sessions because really the point here is academic work, and we want parents involved. The students who are involved in this, and it may well be that the students have asked for help, and maybe that the parents have asked for the help. People need help, and you are brilliant at the work you do. So, one of the wonderful things that got said here earlier was be an active listener. Let me talk about active listening for just a second. Active listening, and this is something I do with the TLS students in training all the time. Active listening means you reflect back to the person who speaks that you heard what they said. So if somebody says to you, boy, I'm really struggling with this, The active listening response is, I hear you struggling with this. And even though that might sound odd to repeat the language back, that lets the other person know you heard them. This is crucial. That's what active listening is about. Let the students know you really heard what their issues are, what they're struggling with. I hear that you're struggling with formulas. I hear that you're struggling with equations. I hear that you're struggling. I hear this. This will make a huge difference for connecting. As a teacher, the most important thing you can do is let the student know that you are there with them in the moment. There is nothing more alienating than you trying to prove that you know more than they do. Please don't do that. And I think from what I've seen already, none of you will do that. I can see from your very sensitive responses that you're thinking well about who you'll be working with. Still, you're really smart. You're really bright. You probably have all the answers, but that's not the issue. So in active listening, the key is to let the students know that you heard them. And you can do that by repeating and reflecting back to them what you heard them say. That's a very basic first rule in active listening. I strongly urge you to practice that. So let's just talk about some really clear boundaries on the don'ts from the BARD standpoint. Because you're adults and these are minors, there are some very clear both legal and ethical boundaries. Questions about sexual relationships, don't go there at all. Questions about drugs, don't go there at all. If somebody asks you, do you smoke? Say, that's a personal question that I'm not going to be involved with. Let's get back to our work. Always refocusing on the work. In general, talking about your own family life, I think you'll have to use your good judgment where the boundary is of that. Somebody asks you how many brothers and sisters you have, I think you can answer that question. If you're going to ask where they are and what they're doing, I think you need to probably say that's more than you need to know in order to do this. That's quite a lot already. So what I want to say is I urge you, if you have questions, even to this point, feel free to put them into the chat and we can start answering them. There will be, of course, questions about how this works, and some of my colleagues, Bonnie and Sarah, will be able to answer some of those questions as we go. Are there any questions now? We'll pause for a second. That's quite a bit of information. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat box. I don't see any coming up. And I have a sense that you have a very good idea about what you're doing and what you're about, which I deeply appreciate. I would like to do then one more thing, which is very Bardian in the chat box. And I will say, if you're not comfortable sharing publicly, don't do it. The hope is that we have an opportunity to share with each other. This is not about prying. What I would like you to do is write down in the chat box and think, maybe just take a minute and think about what does it mean to be doing this online as opposed to live. Most of what we do, most of what the TLS students do, most of the BARD programs, of course, are person to person, and we have all kinds of things about what it means to be in a room with minors. Now you're not going to be in a room. So think both specifically and expansively. What does it mean to be doing this work online? What does it mean to be communicating electronically? And I would like you all to consider and write a little bit about what it means to be tutoring online at this point. And you can think about what it means to be isolated. Here are some things to consider. What it means to be isolated, what it means to be reaching out across time, what it means to be not in a room, but online. So think widely and expansively, and just write a little bit about what it means to be, in this moment, tutoring online.
Paul, real
Yeah.
quick, before folks get started with that, I just wanted to read a question that came in through the chat. This is from Felicia. Thank you, Felicia, for sending this question. I'm sure maybe others had questions, but they maybe thought of this question or maybe didn't think that it was good timing to ask. I just want to encourage you, after this free write that Paul just prompted us to do, there's more time to ask and answer questions, but I did want to answer yours first, Felicia. The question is, if the students who were tutoring mention anything concerning, should we not ask more questions? If concerning, who should we contact? So just so that you're aware, Felicia, we set up, and we'll talk about this either more during the session or follow up by email, but we did set this all up through the school district over in Red Hook. So if there's anything that's concerning that comes up within your tutoring sessions, say for example, some sort of Title IX issue. They have a Title IX coordinator for their school district, and we would simply reach out to the Title IX coordinator from their school district. So we would continue to work with them on that level. I don't want to put any one of our tutors in a position where they feel like they've lost and betrayed trust of any kind of the student. I don't want any student to feel like they are the only person that their tutee is talking to for that. Just know that they have support systems within the school district, and we will immediately connect with those. And also, just as a quick little preview to what we'll follow up procedure wise, Javith for all of the math tutors, Bonnie and I for the CCE tutors. I believe the conservatory has a similar effort, and if not, we'll be sending over what we're doing. We have a post-tutoring session recap survey for everyone to fill out, just to make sure that if there is something, for example, what you're talking about, or is if there is something that is concerning but you don't know and you just want to like let someone know, that's where that kind of information can live. And then, like I said, we can connect with their school district support.
Sarah, may I just jump in with one other thing real quickly? And I'm sorry my video is not working right now, but I just want to add, if anything that comes up of concern, please use us as a resource to consider what you need to do with that information. Please don't sit on it. There is nothing too small or too big that we can't talk about together and figure out where it needs to be addressed. We all have a responsibility to attend to the needs of the students we're working with, the families, and we may learn about, hear about, or experience some things that are of concern. Do not be silent. Do reach out to us so that we know if those are issues that need to be taken to another level, and the only way we can do that is if we're talking with each other. So Sarah, myself, and we'll give you all of that contact information.
Javith too.
Absolutely. For the K through 12 tutors. If you're a tutor with the math circle, to reach out to Japeth. And if you are a practice buddy with a conservatory, to reach out to Trisha Reed or Frank Corliss.
Yeah, and also just to re-echo that point, thank you, Bonnie, for that. Anna's question is, what would constitute a Title IX issue in online training? Exactly what Bonnie was just saying. If it feels small, it's not. Like, might as well just bring it forward. If it feels big, obviously still bring it forward. But just like anything that you think could be an issue, just might as well bring it forward. Absolutely. Thank you. Alrighty, Paul, take it back.
Okay.
Take that
Okay,
mic back.
So I'll just give Anna a little bit. Anna, an issue that came up for a student around being abused in their home, an issue of sexual abuse, of personal violence, of emotional violence that was happening in their world at all, that would be something to take to the school district. We're not counselors. We need to be careful about being counselors. Of course, you're talking about some of these people will be high school seniors, and I can't see you all, so I don't know the years you're in school, but you're probably not very many years away from them. And they may want to confide in you as friends. They may see you as a friend. You need to be careful. There's an ethical and legal divide between a college sophomore and a high school junior. So please don't take your role up as a counselor. Say, wow, that sounds hard. Let me get you to the appropriate services. Let me talk to somebody who can help you. Is that understood? I hope that's understood. Please don't take on the role of being confidants and counselors in this role. There's a lot of slippery slopes there to go down that are very hard. Not that we're insensitive. We will act on this. The school district will act on it. We will address the issue with the student, but we're not asking you to. Clear? I hope so. Good. Okay, so just take a minute or two and please consider what it means to do this online. How do you feel as a teacher? How do you feel about giving your expertise online? How do you feel about doing distance teaching and distance learning? Go ahead and take about a minute or two and just simply write about all the things that come up for you. This is a kind of a Bardian free write. Go ahead. What are the issues that come up for you as you sit in your room online doing this work? Go. These are all very, very good. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to read these just so we're really clear and you've heard everybody. I think it's a great way to help people that you might not normally have the chance to connect with. Yes, of course. From Charlotte, to me, volunteering to tutor practice buddy online means to help the young students in our committee through a crisis. Yes, this is a crisis. It may be the practice buddy's only musical instruction. They might be very isolated and have lost their outlets like sports, music lessons, and clubs at school. They have lost their sports, music lessons, and clubs at school. That's absolutely true. Being an online tutor from Anna is definitely a bit of a reprieve from isolation. It has been really challenging regarding the math, specifically communication is just so much harder when you can't actually sit down in the same room and work out math problems together, of course. From Reedy, when considering online math tutoring, one of the things that comes up for me is the hands-on engagement that often happens on chalkboards and whiteboards, where two people can engage in writing a question together. This is something I did a lot when tutoring. I am struggling to find a substitute for this. Reedy has been a math tutor and runs a TLS project, and I know that she has done a brilliant job of doing this in groups. Reedy, you'll find a way to do this. I trust you. How will tutoring online be different than in person? What are the challenges in communicating clearly? What are some of the solutions in overcoming these? You all need to consider that. Be creative. How can you communicate through this medium? You'll have more to say about this in a month than you do now, I'm sure. Tutoring online, this is from Wasir, allows us to develop our own teaching and pedagogical skills. Yes, you will develop some new skills while helping students whose school may or may not be offering online classes or equivalent supplements. In fact, you may well be the only tutors these students have. You may be the difference between these students learning and not. You will make a difference, I promise you. From Lily, I know what it is like to take online music lessons. Wow. So hopefully my experience with that will help me come up with ideas to make the most of being an online practice buddy. I learned to play the flute from a UCLA band student when I was 7 years old in a little room. I wonder what it would be like to do this online. With teaching music online, it is more difficult to give technical advice. Yes. So Jimmy, that's your key, is how can you do it? Maybe ask people to get closer to the camera. Think about solutions that really solve the problems. What do you need to know? See the fingerings, talk it through. I think you'll get smarter at this. From Felicia, I think it could be challenging to share written out work for math between the tutor and the student. Yes, it may also be hard to read body language. Yes, it will. Set up the camera. Be smart about how you guys set this up. Maximize your effort. So every piece of this will matter. I think it will be different, says Emily, in having to find new ways to show and do work if you don't have a whiteboard or chalkboard. Yes. From Garth, there are differences between in-person tutoring and online tutoring. Primarily, I would emphasize, though, at this moment of social isolation, contact, even through the virtual screen. It's positive human interaction. I think in person, it is easier to see the same work in terms of looking at questions a student is working. And yes, of course, these are the questions that are going to come up. Finally, from Melanie, because students have all stayed at home for about a month, they might be extra curious about the tutor's life and surroundings. Yep. It's like peeking into a whole new world. I feel they may ask questions and be easily distracted. Melanie, you're absolutely right. I will be shocked if the students aren't curious about you. Be very intelligent about what you share. As I say, you can share how many brothers and sisters you have. You can say what your major at college is. Be careful about going more deeply than that. And Riley says, I am really passionate about the opportunity to gather, even if only virtually, with community members. I appreciate that, Riley. Me too. I feel that this is, even though it's through online, I feel the same way. Collaboration has been rendered especially important in the absence of the opportunity to be together. I am so grateful for the platform my high school education allows me to operate from, and I am committed to enabling the same enriching experience for Red Hook high schoolers. It feels so hard to engage academically right now, and I want to both sympathize with this and work together to combat it by way of generating creative interventions. Even if not that much younger than high schoolers, provide a different perspective, which I'm excited to share in as we both navigate this new way of doing school. Academic support matters now more than ever when school has been made so literally inaccessible. To be perfectly honest, I don't think I have anything more to say past what Riley said. I can only say that was brilliantly put, Riley. It's more important than ever that we stay connected. We are not operating in complete isolation, and we will be out looking at each other, and we need to come back having done something constructive and useful and not be in a fog when we emerge from this. And the high school students in Red Hook really need this. The high schools in Red Hook have really struggled a little bit to get this together. Nobody was really prepared for this. And I think that the students who reach out to us really want this to happen. and they really want to connect. We're in a small town and people are really isolated right now. They're in their rooms. So when you have the opportunity, and I will say again, Riley, this was beautifully put, you will make a difference. Your interest in them will make a difference. I think that we need this contact right now. And I really deeply appreciate your willingness to do this for the students. I myself have a high school student aged in this town, and the difference that's being made by the outreach to her is crucial. So I will say thank you again. Before we close, take a second and just think about any closing questions you might have about how this will work, your technical questions, thoughts, any comments you have, and take a minute and put it in the chat. And before we close, we'll address anything that's still up as a question or a thought. So go ahead and take a minute or two.
Great. So we have one question that's already entered into the chat from Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. Will the sessions be structured around answering students' questions, or should we try to decide what content is important to teach? So just so that you're aware, Jimmy, and everyone else who this might be a question on your mind, after every family unit signs up for tutoring, for myself and Bonnie for CCE tutors, Jabeth for math tutors. I can't quite speak so specifically about the conservatory process unless Bonnie has more insight than myself. But we regroup with every family unit directly. So we talk to the parent or guardian about what's needed. So for some students, it will be more structured at the student's pace, the 2D space, and what the parent deems that they need to prepare them for whatever's going on in school that they need. And then in other cases, so sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I don't usually work this late. So in one case, the parent will put forth what their kid needs to work on. And in the other case, the student may be a little more directive and may offer up that material more so than you can prepare for. So in one case, you have a parent who's letting you know ahead of time what's going on. In the other case, it might be up to the student to set the tone. That's something that we're going to figure out with parents as we're pairing tutors to tutees. I hope that made sense. I'm really sorry about that. Bonnie, did you have more to add?
Sarah, if I could just jump in. I think in everything that we're doing, to add on to what Sarah said, is in the best of all worlds, a tutor is going to help people discover their own answers to any question that may come up. It doesn't always work that way. There are times when people are struggling with it, and we do need to help them to understand what the answer is. But at the end of the day, it's about helping them figure out how we came to that answer. It's helping them to figure out how they can begin to do that themselves. And that is a process. And it can be frustrating at times. Every individual is going to be different. Part of what you will be doing is learning about how this young person is learning. And that may be a process, and it may take a few sessions before you understand what they need and how they can best learn. So give yourself a break with it, give them a break with it in the process, and we can all help them move forward.
Let me add one more thing, because I really appreciate what you just said, Bonnie. This is crucial. What you're doing is hard. This is not easy to do. Good teaching, especially one-on-one, is an art form. In truth, it requires an ability to read quickly what's coming towards you and respond in a way that creates energy. It's not easy to do. This is really hard. And so in some ways, you're getting to learn an entirely new skill. I don't want to underscore or underestimate what the challenge here is to do well, to do it really well. You all have the information. I have no doubt you are brilliant musicians, mathematicians, and writers. I've been working with Bard students for 23 years. You're fabulous. The students you're working with may not be able to ask so clearly. So you're going to have all of your antenna going. It's a fabulous skill to be able to really read what you get, especially through a small screen, and respond in a way that really invites people out. I will be so interested, and I will, in fact, come back in a month or so and check in with everybody. How is it going? What are you doing? What did you learn? My guess is our chat box will be full of insights. I'm really looking forward to this. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Any other things to put into the chat? Are we perfectly clear about this?
I wanted to address the same question about what are our goals for the tutoring. For me, it's always helping my student develop their understanding. And sometimes I develop my own understandings. When you're tutoring, you're supporting the student, but you're also supporting their teacher's instruction. And their teacher may do things very, very differently from how you think of that material. So a lot of it is helping the student understand what the teacher is, how the teacher is delivering the material, and support them in that. So it's a very, very big challenge to support the students, to support the teacher, to inspire everyone, to encourage everyone, and keep them moving along.
Yeah, thank you, Jabeth. It's a lot of balls to keep in the air at the same time. It really is. It's a lot of balls to juggle at the same time. And with complete confidence, I think you all can do this brilliantly. And I'm so interested, and I will be interested to hear how it goes. Any last thoughts from anyone? No? Good. So we'll say goodbye. Good luck. Bonnie, do you have any last thoughts on the contact and how this will go forward technically?
Thanks, Paul. Let me just add that each of you who are going to be doing tutoring, and I know also if you're a practice buddy, we'll be doing a different kind of follow-up, but we will be in contact with each of you individually to go through a few steps so that you understand the process and give you a chance to ask some more questions one-on-one. What I do want to let you know is at this point in time, the Red Hook Central School District is advertising these services. What we are working to do right now is to push out that information to help make students and parents aware that this is a service that's available to them. We do know that the school district has just started new material. It's like a new semester for them, a new quarter in the school districts. And this will be the first time they're learning new material online. So that's going to bring new challenges. And we imagine this has been the first week they're grappling with new material. So we imagine a week or two down the road when it begins to sink in for those who might be struggling and really feel like they need extra support, that we'll see more people beginning to reach out for tutoring. So this is a good time for us to get our own ducks in order, make sure everybody understands what they're being asked to do. You have a chance to ask questions, and we can get you the support that you need as tutors. We will be sharing with you some information about a form that you'll be asked to fill out after every tutoring session, so you know how to do that. Real simple. We're not asking you to write a senior thesis. Real simple, just to keep track of what you've done at this point in time, and we'll be doing that one-on-one. Sarah, myself, Japeth, Paul is also available, and Trisha and Frank from the conservatory. We're all happy to answer questions. And we can't thank you enough for your willingness to really step outside and help our school district. And depending on how this goes, we look to you for feedback. We'll see how it might expand for the future. So thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Nice to see you. Bye, everybody.